I think many people, when they are asked about the book of Jonah, what do you think of with the book of Jonah? They think of Jonah and the great fish, the fish that swallows him and keeps him in the dark and wet and cold for a while. And there's been stories of in the news from time to time, that sometimes someone actually gets accidentally swallowed by a baleen type whale, and they don't get swallowed. They don't go all the way down the whale's throat, which is small, but they're in the whale's mouth, and that's part of what I kind of picture a little bit with Jonah. And what's interesting, and the passage of Jonah I encourage you to read today, is chapter 1, verse 17 through chapter 2, verse 10. And this is Jonah's prayer from the belly of the fish. And the verse of the day is verse 2, where Jonah says, I called to the Lord out of my distress, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. Now, what I find really interesting about Jonah's prayer is that if you look at it, none of it is unique. None of it is unique to Jonah. He is actually quoting from a hodgepodge of different verses that almost all appear in the book of Psalms. And if you think about it, maybe this is your own experience, that, when you try to remember verses of the Bible, you may not be able to say, well, this is Psalm 40, verse 6. You remember a verse here and a verse there, and that's what comes to your mind. And Jonah, in his distress, that's what happens for him. And so he ends up praying verses that come from Psalm 18, Psalm 120, Psalm 42, Psalm 88. And in your times when you may feel like you're down at the bottom, and that's what I think of with Jonah in chapter 2. It's like, what do you do when you hit bottom in life? What do you do when you just feel like things can't get any lower? And there's nowhere lower than being in the mouth or the belly of a great fish at the bottom of the sea, right? That's the time we need to look up. When you hit bottom, look up and look to God and pray. And you don't have to be eloquent. You don't have to write your own original prayer. Sharing the words that people have already prayed to God and making them your prayer in your own way is very helpful. And Jonah, even at that low, low point, he has the assurance that God hears and God will answer his prayer. And the end of his prayer is, but I, with the voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you what I have vowed I will pay. Deliverance belongs to the Lord. And he's able to pray that while he's still in the mouth or the belly of the fish, to believe that he will see God's deliverance. And in fact, we know that's what happens, because God delivers Jonah out of the belly of the fish, and he gets vomited, if you'll forgive the word, vomited out on the dry land, just like my wonderful old little Jonah doll here. Jonah comes out of the fish, and he gets a second chance to fulfill God's task. And that's what I'll be talking to you about tomorrow.